What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Bucky with you as the schedule is out, man. We've got the NFL schedule in our hands here, Buck. It was released yesterday. We'll have a chance to dig into some of that in a moment, looking at week one as well as some of these rookie quarterbacks, what we can expect, when they'll play, all that fun stuff. But first of all, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm good, DJ. The thing about a schedule release to me that's so exciting is you finally now get to kind of pinpoint how the season will go. Like, from working in front offices and stuff, not necessarily for us as scouts, but as coaches, what you're trying to do is you're trying to put together a plan to keep your team ready so they can play their best football down the stretch. So for me, the things that I look for are, okay, when are the primetime games? When is the bye week? When are any oddities in the schedule? Meaning we got back-to-back West Coast trips. We have to go overseas. We have to do those things together because those things have a direct impact on how you get the team ready to play. And what do you want to do? Do we want to stay out east or do we want to stay out west? Or are we going back and forth? How do we get those things? And I think so much of what a successful teams do is they have a clear plan of action for all of those things. You've been around Andy Reid. I think Andy Reid is one of the best in the business at coming off a bye week. He just has it nailed down how to get his team ready to play after the bye, how many days they get off, how they go about the week, how they come back from it. There's certain teams from an organizational standpoint in terms of putting the structure together. They just know how to set themselves up for success over the course of a season, no matter what the oddities are within that season.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. By the way, curious, are you going to have to go back and forth on the London trips again this year? You got a high school game?
I do have a high school game, and I want to make sure I'm very respectful. So, yeah, I'll go back and forth. I don't want to, say, they got it, this and that. But DJ, what I learned last year when I did it, I took the second back end of the trip. I left on a Saturday, landed on a Sunday, went right to the game, and left Monday morning early. But my body never realized what you
did to it. Yeah.
No, because it was so whatever. Now, but because I've been to London so much, I didn't feel the need to I need to sightsee and explore and all that. So it's
get
it's
in, get a game, and get out.
Yeah, it was a business trip. But for the Jaguars, and we'll talk about it, DJ, it's a huge advantage. Now,
oh my gosh,
it's a huge advantage because the team has been going over there for 10 plus years. So they kind of understand the lay of the land. Last year was the first year they did back-to-backs. And what the team discovered is, man, this is a big opportunity. It's a chance for you to really double up, to get 2 wins overseas, to really put yourself in a nice position. The first team they played last year came over on like a Thursday or Friday. You could tell they were sleepwalking the first half. It took a while to get the lay of the land. Because the Jags have been there and they kind of know how to do it, like they're ready to play. To me, it's a competitive advantage. It's one that if they take care of business the right way, they should be able to walk away 2-0. And it doesn't have anything to do with the opponent. It's just being able to get ready to play overseas, different body clock, different routine. They should have that nailed down.
Yeah, one thing I don't know if listeners are aware of is that teams have different philosophies on travel, not just for London. Bucky's talking about, do you come out there for the week? Do you come out there just a couple days before? That's its own issue. But there are teams that are on the coast that, have long trips, like the Chargers, who I call games for. They'll travel more miles than anybody. Well, under Anthony Lynn, they were a Friday travel team. So Friday, get that long trip out of the way, get settled in. You have that day, Saturday, you're together. You could say, okay, there's some team bonding stuff there. You can go out to dinners. There's different, there's some time baked in there, but it's a Friday travel day. Well, with Staley, he wanted to land at the same time by your bodies every Saturday, the day before the game. So we would always land kind of 6:00 by California time, like around there. At least that's the way I recall it.
Yeah.
Because you always kind of just get in a rhythm, even though you're playing a 10 a.m. game, you're used to, we get at the hotel, we eat at this time by our bodies, and then we get up and either play at 10 or we play at 1. But there's teams that have totally different philosophies on the travel.
So it's funny, Doug Peterson is a body clock guy. Like, Doug Peterson doesn't take extra time when you go to the West Coast, whatever. He wants the routine to stay the same for everybody. Even when they went to London, it was still very much the body clock. Let's stay on rhythm. Don't change the routine or whatever. And Look, I think our listeners should understand, like, coaches are creatures of habit, and they want to give the players the same routine, the same structure, the same um, detail, because they don't want anyone to be disrupted. So a lot of that planning is about, hey, we want to just keep it. Hey, how can we keep it the routine so the players don't feel weird? Look, because after a while, you know it, DJ. How long did it take for you to get out of your normal routine after working in the league for eight
Oh, I
plus
know.
years?
Yeah.
Like your body is just so used to, okay, here we go. We're in August. I'm used to doing those things. And a lot of it is just trying to keep, hey, let's keep the routine the same. Let's not disrupt what they're really used to doing, because some players don't respond well to when the routine is disrupted.
No doubt. Yeah, again, I think some people might not be aware. Everybody approaches this differently. I looked at the Chargers schedule, traveling with them, and a couple things I noticed right away. No Thursday game. There's some teams that have 2 Thursday games.
Mhm.
So that's brutal. But no Thursday game. 3 prime times, 1 at home, so no travel disruption there. 1, I believe, a Monday nighter at Arizona. That's a puddle jump.
Mhm.
That's no big deal. But then there's a Kansas City one Sunday night. That's brutal. When you have those are late nights. Get back in early in the morning the next day. But really only one of those. So those are some of the things I look at. And I dodged Christmas and dodged Thanksgiving. So came out clean on the holidays.
Yeah, same thing over here with the Jags. Like outside of the European trips, there's nothing that's really. You have a few primetime games. You have a Monday night game against the Buffalo Bills, which everyone loves because all eyes are on the team. That's early in the season. You have a Sunday night game against the Philadelphia Eagles, but that's an East Coast trip, so that doesn't necessarily change or disrupt anything. And then, you talked about no Thanksgiving, no Christmas Day games. Everything remains the same. And like there's a saying in the building, like those guys love 1 o'clock games. Hey,
Yeah.
Sunday, 1 o'clock, tee it off. Let's go to work.
Yes.
And do it because it just allows you to maintain the same routine, even your off days and those things. I just want the listeners to understand, when you have a Thursday night game, and the worst is having a Sunday night, then a Thursday night. Like hopefully they never do that.
Especially a
But
Thursday road.
yeah, like when you have a Thursday game, it completely shrinks your preparation week. A lot of times, NFL players, they don't begin to feel good physically until about Wednesday or Thursday the next week. And so if you're
That's a
playing,
walkthrough. That's a walkthrough week, man.
right, that's a walkthrough. And so if we think about, hey, Sunday's going to be your game, that means, hey, we probably need to give the players off on Monday so we can go Tuesday, Wednesday's the travel day, and then we're at it on Thursday. It just changes the way that you go about your process. And we talk about a heavy walkthrough week, but it's not only the walkthrough week, it's we can't make a lot of changes to the game plan. The game
Mhm.
plan that we're going to use is a pretty generic game plan with maybe just a couple of tweaks for this specific team, but you're just kind of rolling with what you've always done. It really challenges coaches to really simplify everything to give their teams an opportunity to play fast. And what you're telling the team, hey, this is like another bye week. You get a long weekend, you get
Mhm.
back. We just got to get through this. And someone was telling me, I think the Baltimore Ravens at the end of the year, they may have 3 games in 10 days, um, based on how the schedule cracks. DJ, that is not ideal way to go into the tournament, but it's
No.
one of those things where you have to start planning out, how do we want to handle this when it comes to the way that we practice, the way that we lift, the way that we run them. We want them to be fresh. How can we get all these things accomplished? So that's what some of the meetings that are going on today, some of those meetings will cover some of the scheduling and logistical stuff to get your team ready to play a full 17 game slate.
100%. And again, there's departments. Each team has their own travel department, and they put this whole puzzle together. So that's something they'll be working on here over the next few days, if not the next few weeks. Buck, we're going to get into week 1, and we're also going to get into the quarterback schedules, looking at these rookie schedules. But I thought before we do that, and especially as it connects to rookie quarterbacks, I thought this would be an interesting experiment. So everybody looks at the schedule. A lot of the discussion is, okay, the Commanders, New England, Chicago, Minnesota, Denver, like what does that schedule look like? When do these quarterbacks get on the field? What's the right time? Chicago obviously already announced Caleb is their starter. So that's already put to bed. So we know that's going to happen. And we can get into all these individually, and we'll do that in a moment. But before we do that, I wanted to go backwards before we go forward. So last year, C.J. Stroud, one of the best rookie seasons we've seen from a quarterback, right? Off the charts. And then Bryce Young epically struggled with the Carolina Panthers. So I wanted to look at it and say, before we talk about what needs to happen for, Caleb and Jaden and JJ, Drake May, all these guys to get off to good starts, and what's the operating instructions? Well, we've got recent examples of one that went really well and one that went really poorly. So I went back and watched the first 2 games of CJ Stroud. So let's start there first. You ended up seeing his third game.
Yeah.
So I want to get your thoughts on what you saw on him in that third game. But the first 2 games, fascinating to me. Game 1 against the Ravens, 59 dropbacks in that game. 59. Game 2 against the Indianapolis Colts, 57 dropbacks. Okay. And then after those 2 games, 5 straight games under 35 dropbacks. So it was almost like we kind of went all in, and then we kind of pulled back a little bit and said, okay, let's get him comfortable here. 35 dropbacks. And then when you kind of go through his season, weeks 8 and 9, those were the big wins against Tampa Bay and Cincinnati, where he played lights out. And that's when the rocket took off. But it was orchestrated to get to that point. And then I'll get to the specifics of how they use him in a second. But then Bryce Young, I talked about 5 straight games of under 35 dropbacks for CJ Stroud after weeks 1 and 2. Bryce Young, Buck, he played 12 games before he had a game with under 35 dropbacks. Wow. 12. It's too much, man. That's too much on him over a sustained period of time. And then you kind of look at this. I pulled this other stat as I was looking at 3rd and 7 plus. I'm like, okay, I wonder what the difference was in terms of how often they were in those situations. Bryce Young was in 120 dropbacks, Stroud 108. Not that different, So they're pretty close in terms of 3rd and long situations. Now Stroud's performance was much better, and this was the takeaway here. Bryce Young 25 sacks on 3rd and 7 plus. CJ Stroud 6.
Ball's coming out.
So the ball's out. So there's a couple different things there, and then and I'll give you this one last thought here. Okay, how did they use him? Even in those first 2 games where I thought they probably dropped him back too much against Baltimore and Indy with Stroud, you start those games, it is quick game. It's empty, ball out. It's moving the pocket. It's like you can tell they've coached him. Take checkdowns. Don't get bored with completions. Just take them. If it's there, take it right now, even if you're underneath the sticks. 5-out quick game. He is one of his best throws is just a bang 8. They hit it to Nico Collins. It is play action off their back foot, balls out, skinny post. It's a throw that he loves to make, and he's really good at it. And you saw that show up in those first 2 games multiple times. And then this was the last little nugget here. This simple things like this, in terms of understanding having a rookie quarterback, they're losing the Baltimore game. It's over, right? He's in the game all the way to the finish line. Some people say, well, maybe you get him out of there. You know what they did, Buck? I think he got 5. It was 5. I think it was 5 out of 6, like underneath like a minute 40. 5 of 6. They gave him 5 layups. 5 layups. So didn't move the ball really down the field, didn't accomplish much. But you know what it does? When you're a rookie and you go back the next day and you look at your stat sheet and you pull it up, those 5 completions, those 5 layups that they gifted him at the end of the game, that's smart. It's so smart, and it blows my mind that other teams don't think like that.
Yeah, so there are a few different takeaways when it comes to it. One, look, I think they're veteran quarterbacks that need to be on a pitch count when it comes to a number of pass attempts. I mean, it's documented. Some guys, they really fall off once they get over that 30 pass attempt mark. You talked about 35 attempts. I mean, it's a lot of attempts.
Yeah, that's dropbacks too. So some of them end up being sacks, so they don't end up being attempts. But they're throwing them. Their intent is to throw them.
That's a lot of pass attempts. When we think about the average NFL game being anywhere from 65 to 71 offensive plays, I mean, you are hucking it down the field. When we think about young quarterbacks, no matter how experienced or inexperienced a young quarterback is, the NFL game is so much faster. And to think that they can process it to the point where they have it down, you have to go into them and drop them in the pool with the floaties on, right? It appeared that the Houston Texans were trying to drop CJ Stroud into the deep end, gonna let him kind of figure it out. And then they realized, hey, maybe we need to bring it back, dial it back and do it. So I got a chance to see him, obviously, that third game against the Jaguars. And he did manage it more. They were a little more committed to running the football and making sure that they put him in favorable situations when it came to what we're calling. Let's try not to have him in these long yardage situations where, man, he's having to face the teeth of the defense. The pass rush is dialed up and those things. And even though the Jags tried to blitz him, he was ready for it because he didn't anticipate it. That goes to how you talked about them using him. The easiest thing that we have seen when it comes to young quarterbacks has been empty formation. We talked about Joe Burrow early in his career. Hey, man, don't worry about leaving people in. Let's get them all out. Let's spread them out so now I can do it. That, to me, speaks to the 7-on-7 culture. DJ, now more than ever, these guys are throwing the ball all over the yard. And when you watch them, even on our network, OT7, they're throwing it from spread formations. They have clear sight lines when it comes to who's covering whom, who's blitzing, and those things. Empty gives them that. I think the great offensive coordinators are able to take a handful of concepts that are really key to being successful. Empty formation with quick game, play action passes with layered throws on one side of the field so your eyes never have to leave and go all the way across the field. The other thing that they're able to do is they are being aggressive on early downs when it comes to the pass, as opposed to waiting to those third and long yardage, obvious passing situations to do it. So it is all part of a plan that is carefully crafted to make sure that you take care of the quarterback. And last thing, the screen game has to be a part of it.
100%.
Not only the bubble screens, but the slow screens to the running back. If you have a running back that can catch the ball out the backfield, that can win a matchup, man, you just think about how many times an older Drew Brees did this. Hey, let's go 4 verticals. Alvin Kamara leaked through, and you can go either way, and I'm just going to target you. It is just such an easy way to get your quarterback completions and confidence because, look, he sees the ball go through the hoop, the layups.
All right. I do think it's interesting. I think it's helpful. If I know one thing, if I was a coordinator for one of these teams, starting one of these rookie quarterbacks, Buck, I'm going back. I'm watching Justin Herbert's rookie year. I'm watching C.J. Stroud's rookie year. Burrow got hurt. But I mean, to me, those other two, those are as good as we've seen, from rookie quarterbacks and the success that they've had. And I might go back and watch might go watch Bryce Young, Zach Wilson, some others, and kind of get let's be careful how we do some of this stuff.
Yeah. And I think, some of the frustration sometimes that you have with NFL coaches is sometimes you can be so consumed with like your call sheet and your playbook that you forget to really assess where the player is. Yeah. And even though you as a play caller are so comfortable with having all these things on the call sheet, your player may not be able to do it. And if you really don't know the player well enough, he may never tell you that he's not comfortable doing it. And so you put it on him, but you can see. And so it's really, really important. And I learned this from Gil Haskell, who was Mike Holmgren's right-hand man. And when I first started coaching in high school and I was coaching an all-star event, and I asked Gil, I said, Gil, like, how do you handle this? He said, Buck, it is always about the player and what the player knows. He was like, so you can have all these great ideas, but you need to sit down with the quarterback and have him take a red pen and tell him, hey, man, mark off anything that you don't like. And you got to trust him on it. He said, because just because you can stand behind him and see the progression, he may not get it. And certain things just don't click. For some guys, they click for other guys. And you have to meet the player where he is while you push him, but you cannot force things on him that are not in their wheelhouse. And I think a lot of NFL coordinators have to just be willing to hear what the rookie quarterback really understands and can process and meet them there. And even if you have to just, as I would say, dress it up, more motions, more shifts, more spins, same concept, but a bunch of different varieties, you have to do it, because if you give him too much, you really run the risk of messing him up. He may never get his confidence back out of that.
No doubt. It is handle with care, fragile, whatever you want to say, but that's how you have to approach working with these rookie quarterbacks. Speaking of those rookies, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll look at the schedule for some of these top rookies and what we expect when they will get the reins to take over their teams. And then we'll look at maybe some of our favorite week 1 matchups. We'll do that right after this. All right, Buck, Chicago. We know Caleb's going to be the starter there. They're slate to start the year. Tennessee at home, at Houston. at the Colts, the Rams, the Panthers, the Jags. The Jags game will be over there in London. You'll be there for that one. So when you look at that, Titans, Texans, Colts, Rams, Panthers, Jags. It's not a murderer's row there. It's good teams. There's some solid teams and there's some good teams in there. But you've got a Tennessee team that's, it's a little bit still trying to find themselves here. You got a new coach there. You've got the Carolina Panthers new coach is trying to find themselves. You've got in between those, you've got Houston ascending, Indy's, is solid. The Rams are a solid team, but no Aaron Donald. I just look at that and I say, okay, that's not a bad launching pad there for Caleb Williams. Could be a lot worse.
Yeah, it could be a lot worse. And, the thing that you like about Caleb Williams' situation really, really early in the year, he's supported with a veteran crew around him. I mean, yes, Roma Dunze was a top 10 pick. He's a rookie, but Keenan Allen, DJ Moore being there, Cole Kmet being there, what they've done with the offensive line, DeAndre, in terms of those to protect the young quarterback. Hey, man, you just get the ball to us. We'll take care of everything. Don't feel like you got to go outside of yourself. Those early games, he should be able to get away and do that. And what you hope is he flashes enough early while he's just kind of managing the situation that then you can kind of loosen the reins and allow him to be the playmaker that he was at USC. It's a gradual process, but he will let you know when he's ready to do that. But a conservative game plan early, where it's a lot of like underneath stuff where you let the perimeter playmakers kind of go to work, and then you begin to unleash Caleb Williams as he delivers that confidence. I would expect him to make that major jump the last half of the season. The last 6-7 games, that's when the game should finally slow down. And then we should be able to see the Caleb Williams that really impressed a lot of scouts when he was at USC.
Yeah, the interesting thing at the end of the year, I know one thing. I lived in Baltimore for only 2 years. I spent in college at App State. I was up there for 3 years, and it got cold up there in the mountains. But I will say, after moving home twice, after being in colder climates, it did not take long for me to soften up, Buck. I did not want anything to do with cold weather. I know Caleb grew up in D.C., so he's used to cold weather. It's not like he was a Southern California kid that went to USC. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be a reintroduction to that cold weather. When you finish the season with the Detroit Lions in Chicago on December 22nd, Seattle in a night game December 26th in Chicago, that's going to be butt cold. And the last game of the year at the Green Bay Packers. So however soft we all get when we live on the West Coast when it comes to weather, you have to shake those cobwebs off and get used to that cold weather, because that is a brutal stretch to end the season.
It is a brutal stretch, and I want everyone to think about like how it impacts the quarterback. It's not just like how you feel in terms of physically in that cold weather. The hits hit a little different. They feel a little different. It's really throwing the ball in inclement conditions. You are an aspiring golfer, getting your lessons all the time.
Yep.
The ball flies.
One yesterday, getting worse.
That's okay. Got to get worse before you get better. The ball flies differently in cold weather than it does hot weather. It doesn't fly as far. So Caleb Williams has to get used to learning that.
All right, Buck, we get to Washington here. Jay Daniels is winning this job, isn't he? I mean, he's starting week 1. He's going to be ready.
Yeah, I don't even know what we're talking about. He should be on the field. I would think that Cliff Kingsbury would want him on the field from the jump. He has so much talent. He has the ability to make these things happen, not only with his arm, with his legs. He has the automatic golden parachute. His athleticism should buy him time to be able to work through some of the issues that he may have as a thrower because he's such a dynamic athlete. Yeah, I want to start him right away. And I'll be honest with you, DJ, I'm really optimistic about the Washington Commanders in their first season. I just think Adam Peters and Dan Quinn have done a really good job of putting this team together. And even though on paper it may not look like the sexiest group, I feel like they have the right mix of veterans to be able to kind of surprise and jump out. I don't want to call them like the Texans were, because no one saw the Texans coming, but I do believe they can catch lightning in the bottle and be a much better team than many teams expect.
Yeah, look, not an easy start in terms of 3 of their first 4 games on the road. Open up at Tampa, the Giants at home, then at the Bengals on a Monday night, at the Cardinals. And then so you look at that and go, okay, well, if they weren't going to start him to start the season, maybe you do it after those 3 road games that you have in the first 4 weeks. But then no, because then right after that you play the Browns with Myles Garrett, Jim Schwartz, and that defense, and then you're at the Ravens. So I'd rather have him get his feet underneath him in those early games, even though they're on the road. 3 of those 4.
Mhm.
I look at that. I think he should absolutely be the starter week 1. And the other thing I look at there is I wish the bye was a little earlier. Just kind of catch your breath as a young player and kind of be able to self-evaluate, self-scout, and then finish up strong. Man, their bye's not till week 14, man. That is a late bye.
That is a late buy. I'm with you, DJ. And here's why I agree with you in terms of throwing him in. We have seen Jaden Daniels have to work through tough times. He was in college for so long. We've seen how he bounces back from adversity. That should give us the confidence that whatever happens in the first 3 or 4 games is not going to rattle him to his core. He's shown that he is bound back. It's one of the reasons why we talked about liking our quarterbacks with a few scuffs and scars, some calluses on the hands from having to do some tough work. He should be prepared for that. 55 career starts in college. He should be ready for it in terms of just dealing with having to bounce back, the resilience. Not saying that he's prepared to see what he's going to face in the NFL, but he has worked through enough tough moments that the first sight of adversity is not going to necessarily knock him off his charge.
I'm telling you too, man. If we see Penix, Nix, Jaden Daniels, all those guys have success, it's going to create a whole new dialogue for these college coaches to be like, hey, don't step over $1 to pick up a quarter. Like,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like, stay here. You're going to get starts.
Mhm.
We're going to get you 40, 50 starts in college, and then you're going to be ready to go, and you're going to hit the ground running, and you're going to make so much money on your second contract. Who cares if you're the first pick or the 15th pick in this current draft? Let's wait a year. Let's get you ready to go, get you prepared. And there's going to be a long track record of guys now that we're starting to see who've played a lot of football, who've translated really, really well. And you got the NIL. It's not like you're foregoing, money. Yeah, it's going to cost you some money. You have to wait an extra year to get to your second contract, but make a couple $1 million there while you're in college and kind of give yourself a better shot to hit the ground running. Don't you think that's an easier sales pitch now for these college coaches?
Oh, I think the sales pitch is already there. Just watching, like, 6 guys go in the top 12. 3 of those guys have significant experience, and 3 of those guys were kind of cast aside. Well, 2 of them in particular, Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels. People didn't think that they would be what they were, but the time that they had in college gave them an opportunity to develop and improve in a game that is really about development. And then when it comes to Michael Penix, his injuries and such, he needed the extra time to prove to people that he could be durable enough to do it. I think colleges already have a blueprint to be able to convince quarterbacks that is more beneficial for them to stay and play as opposed to make the first jump. Even though Drake May and JJ McCarthy did, the tell of the tape will be how they perform. Because DJ, if you're right, if those older guys perform well, now you have Brock Purdy, who has been able to play to a lesser degree. Aiden O'Connell's been able to play, and they were experienced players when they entered the National Football League because they stayed around in college.
No doubt. Yeah, I think it's going to be the pitch. It's going to be made by these colleges, which should be pretty compelling to some of these guys. New England Patriots, Drake May. Look, there's a lot of talk out there, and I tend to lean on this side of things, which is I'm not in a hurry to get him out there. And so some of it, okay, Drake needs time. He needs time to develop. But more so to me, I don't love the group that they have there offensively at this point in time. I'll let Jacoby Brissett go out there and take those shots as we try and get more comfortable there. But when you look at an insert point for him, they've got a late bye. Again, they're the 14th week as well as the Commanders. So it's a late bye. You could say, okay, we could wait till then. But then you've got 2 road games to start out there at Arizona, at Buffalo. That'd not be the super easy, launch point there. But you finish up with those 2 home games. So 2 options to me. You can start them against the Chargers week 17. That gives you Chargers and Bills at the end of the year. Give you 2 games, kind of get a little look-see, similar to Mahomes. Mahomes got 1 start, late in the year, at the end of the year of his rookie year. The other entry point, Buck, would be if you wanted to just get to week 11. So he sits the first 10 weeks. Then he starts at home against the Rams. then you're at the Dolphins, then you're home with the Colts. So 2 out of 3 home games, and then a bye. So you could play those 3 games, have a bye. Let's reset. What do we like? What do we not like? Where are we comfortable? Where can we get you better? What's our focus as we go down the stretch? It's just kind of looking at it like it's a 7-game season for you. 3 a break, and then we finish up with 4.
So, so the listeners understand from a scouting parlance, we always talk about evaluating 4 games on a prospect. Sometimes, depending on the team, it may be 3 games. What you're talking about is giving the team an opportunity. Hey, let's get these 3 games in. No matter what it looks like. Don't worry about what it looks like. Let's throw it out there. Let's have them push the envelope. Maybe we even do the C.J. Stroud approach. Hey, let's drop back. Let's let them throw it. Let's get all this stuff on tape. And then during that bye week, let's whittle it down and see if we can begin to come up with some game plans that help him the last 4 games of the year. Now we can study all of that in the offseason to build a better plan for him in 2025. It makes a lot of sense to do it that way because those 7 games can be valuable for him, learning how to acclimate to the speed of the game, and then for us, learning how to adapt and tweak our game plan and our approach to make sure that he feels really, really good about what he's being asked to do at quarterback.
No doubt. We get to the Minnesota Vikings. I do think Sam Darnold's got a real good shot of keeping this job for the whole year, but their bye is week 6. So Sam's got the Giants, the Niners and Texans at home, then at the Packers, and then the Jets. So you could look at it as a team with high expectations in Minnesota with a good roster. That's not an easy start, especially after that first game with Niners, Texans, Packers, Jets. And that Jets game will be over in London. So let's say there's a scenario where they come out the gate and they're 1-4. Then I could see, okay, they could turn it over to J.J. McCarthy if they have kind of that disastrous start to the season. Then he would be in there week 7, Lions at home, followed by a Thursday night game, which kind of gives you a mini bye after that before playing the Colts at home. So the bye to me that's the point. I think if Sam Darnold gets to the bye, I think there's a good chance, greater than 50% chance that Sam Darnold runs the table as the starter for this year. But that's a lot of pressure on Sam Darnold in those 6 games, 5 of which are very difficult.
Well, yeah, look, it's a very difficult slate for Sam Darnold to jump out in. And Kevin O'Connell, is a great play caller and developer of quarterbacks and game plans to really highlight and showcase the quarterback. Sam Darnold has the pressure of knowing that, man, the bye week is so short. It's unlike other guys. I'm sure if he had his druthers, he would have it like when Drake May has it week 14.
Yeah, week 14, yeah.
But the teams that he plays, the thing that he will have to do is he needs to play well enough to continue to make them feel good. Hey, he gives us the best chance to win. If he has 1 or 2 where he lays an egg in those first 6 weeks, J.J. McCarthy is going to be the starter by the time we come out of the bye week. So it's a lot of pressure on him. But I think that competition that he knows, I think that competition can bring out the best in him and also bring out the best in J.J. McCarthy. I will say this because everyone talks about J.J. McCarthy and the way he's played. I don't know right now if we can confidently say that Minnesota is built to support a quarterback. They're built to support a young quarterback. I don't know if J.J. McCarthy is ready to be the quarterback that the team is built to support, meaning they're more built to support a guy that's a thrower, and he has played in an offense that was more run first or whatever. Not saying that J.J. McCarthy can't throw, but it's a different style that he's jumping into because I've never seen Kevin O'Connell really have to dial it back and say, hey, we're going to run the game through the running back as opposed to through the quarterback. That's a different lane to jump in. And it may take some time for Kevin O'Connell to navigate that. And it also may take some time for J.J. McCarthy to navigate the other lane, which is, hey, we're going to run the offense through me. He hasn't had to do that as a collegiate.
What do you feel about as we get to the Broncos? I know, again, Bo Nix, 61 starts. You say, okay, he's ready to roll. Throw him out there week 1, which I don't have a problem if that's the way they decide to go. However, if you're looking for an easier entry point, in other words, let's just watch a few weeks here. Go through your week of preparation, practice, get comfortable, see it from the sideline, get a little bit of a feel for the speed and those things because you open up at Seattle, Pittsburgh at home, at the Bucs, at the Jets. And I just look at that and go, okay, if we can hold our water through those first 4 games, let's let Stidham go out there for the first 4 weeks, see how we do. At that point in time, we've got home games with the Raiders and the Chargers before going to the Saints and then playing the Panthers. That feels like, to me, after 4 weeks of just watching, observing, I think there's something to be said for having a good entry point there for a young quarterback. Although he's played a lot of football, and Nix, to me, Bo Nix getting a chance to start against the Raiders October 6th, I like that plan a little bit better than throwing him out there week 1 at Seattle.
Set him up for success. What you're trying to do is set him up for success. So if you're Sean Payton, last year you waxed poetic on Jarrett Stidham. You thought that Jarrett Stidham could play. You can do that. Well, give Jarrett Stidham his opportunity to play, and then after 4 weeks, reevaluate the situation. If it's going well, you stay with him, and you continue to keep Bo Nix on the sideline. The crew of teams the collection of teams that he's tasked with facing right out the gate, very, very difficult. And when you go out on a limb, and I'll say this only because it's our perception, media's perception of what Sean Payton did with Bo Nix, going out on a limb. Well, if you're going out on a limb and everyone is like ready to put your reputation at stake, give your player that you feel so strongly about, give him the best opportunity to succeed. And that might mean, hey, we're going to sit you down early. But, man, we're going to the bullpen really, really early in this one. Once we get the 5th inning, be ready. And so that 5th week, Bo Nix, be ready to play. Go through your plan, go through your process, see what you can learn from observing Jarrett Stidham's, the way that he gets ready to play and how he performs in game. And then you got to be able to take the ball from him.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting decision there for Sean Payton. If Bo Nix goes out there, has a great training camp, joint practices, preseason, all that stuff, aces all those tests, then hey, go ahead, run him out there week 1. But if there's any hesitancy, to me, it's a lot easier to just let him sit those first 4 weeks, observe it, and then drop him into friendlier waters there at that point in time. All right, before we go, Buck, week 1, I want to give you the front and the back here, and tell me what you think about these 2 games. We've got Ravens Chiefs to kick it off on Thursday. Again, it's a great slate of games, but I just want to focus on 2: Ravens Chiefs, and then we finish it up with the Jets at the 49ers on Monday night. Those are 2 sexy matchups, man.
Ooh, very sexy matchups. What I love about running back the AFC Championship game, we get an opportunity to see how far the Ravens offense has come since kind of laying an egg in that championship game. Just lost, I would say, their identity, didn't stick to the script when it came to how they've been winning all year. Just kind of threw it, didn't get back to running. Now this team has Derrick Henry in the backfield. I think Derrick Henry
is the story of the game. To me, that's the story of that game. Is what is that?
Derrick Henry is the natural anchor to the thing. You can't help but when you see him, like, we probably should hand the ball off and give it to him. He's just kind of out there pass protecting. Maybe we need to run it. I'm curious to see that. The other part that I'm curious to see, I'm sure you've seen the reports of the amount of weight that Lamar Jackson has lost in the last year or 2. At one point, he had fluffed up to like 230 pounds. He's now down, and they're saying he might be 210, 205. When he was at Louisville, he was at 200, 205. If Lamar Jackson is down and back to running like he ran as a youngster, watch out. Because that part of his game, DJ, even though we kind of wanted him to become more comfortable in the pocket, that part of his game, the explosive big play, that's been missing the last couple of years. And it always kind of falls a little bit for athletic quarterbacks as they get closer to 30. But for Lamar Jackson, who's still such a dynamic athlete, I still want to be able to lean into that. Not the entire year, but as we get closer to the postseason, I want Lamar Jackson to be able to do some of that stuff that we talk about Pat Mahomes doing when he kind of revs up the running game when they get into those gotta-have-it situations.
And I'm curious on the other side of it with the Chiefs. I think the defense is going to be really, really good. And a lot of young players who played great last year, year 1 and 2. Now you're going to see even better from them. I think defensively they got a chance to be outstanding. I'm curious to see what this new track team that they've tried to assemble on the outside looks like. Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy. Okay, let's everybody wants to play too high shell. I get it, but we will commit to the run game. But then if you do give us looks we like, no more singles and doubles. We're going to go back to hitting some home runs. So I'm curious to see what does that look like, and how do they handle the pressure the Ravens are going to send at them. So that's going to be fascinating. And does that tack on more years? Having quality speed, does that tack on more years for Kelsey, Buck? Does he get more room to work?
Maybe. Do they use a little load management strategy where they really try and preserve him the first half of the season? Put him on a pinch count, a play count. Hey, you're only going to get 35 plays today. So we're going to make those 35 plays count. We're going to start mixing some of those guys in and out to spell you because we need you down the stretch. When we're making a push for the postseason, we need you to be playing at a high level. I think that does have an impact on the way that they use Kelsey. The other part of it is how does this offense continue to evolve? As optimistic as we are on Xavier Worthy being able to maybe be a Deshaun Jackson-like playmaker, what if he's not? Do we have other angles and other gears that we can kind of push and get into, whether it's the running game or the screen game or any of those things? The first part of the season will be very experimental for Andy Reid as he tries to assess what his team is. Then as they kind of tighten down the screws, they'll figure it out and they'll start playing their best football down the stretch.
Yeah, no, they have always found a way to peak at the right time. Let's get to the Monday Nighter Jets Niners. What are you looking at?
Well, obviously, it's a revenge game for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the last time we had so much hype and stuff around Aaron Rodgers, he goes out there, plays 4 plays, and it's all over. Are the Jets better constructed now if they do lose Aaron Rodgers for a little bit of time? Do they have enough to be able to do it? That's why the Tyrod Taylor was such a huge signing because it gave them a legitimate quarterback behind Aaron Rodgers. Not saying he's on the same level, but it gave them a legitimate player who might be good enough to win some games in his absence. I want to see how this offense comes together. I mean, we talk about they're like the old school Boston Celtics. They're bringing everybody off the scrap heap. Tyron Smith.
Tyron Smith. They got Morgan Moses. They've got Mike Williams.
They're just old. But can we get all the old guys to play and avoid the injury bug? What do we need to do? Can we tweak and alter practice? All of those things are a part of the conversation. And then finally, I want to see how good is this defense. We've talked about this Jets defense being really good. Can they single-handedly do it? Because if they can single-handedly do it, then Nathaniel Hackett has an opportunity to slowly integrate, Aaron Rodgers back into the mix. Like we don't have to do everything necessary to do it. We can just lean on the defense, kind of let this offense kind of find itself later in the year. So we'll just see how this works. But I'm really curious to see what this Jets defense looks like and how they can best support this offense.
Yeah, and on the Jets side of things, for me, Bryce Hall, another year removed from the injury with the ACL. He was really good last year, but I think he's going to be able to get into another gear and be a big time home run hitter for them, not only running the ball, but they can use him in the passing game. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey on the other side. That'll be fun to watch those two guys do their thing. A lot of talk about Purdy. There'll be a lot of talk about Aaron Rodgers, but two of the better running backs that we have in the league. So that'll be fun to watch those guys.
Yeah, I am looking at what they do on the outside when we talk about the Niners. How does Ricky Pearsall get into the rotation? This has been a team that's traditionally been a 21 personnel team. They haven't done a lot of 11 personnel stuff. Well, how are we going to take advantage of the first round pick? What is he going to be and how is he factored into the equation if this pick was a reaction to the way that the Kansas City Chiefs manned them up in the Super Bowl? Now you have 2 route runners, Brandon Ayuk, Ricky Pearsall. Does that mean Deebo Samuel's the odd man out? Or are they really trying to create more opportunities to take advantage of man-to-man? Can't wait to see what Cal Shanahan does with this unit.
I'm curious to see how much more they hand the ball to Deebo Samuel with Ricky Pearsall. I mean, there's opportunities now with him and McCaffrey. You can really tap into your creative side a little bit and say, hey, I don't need Deebo Samuel to win one-on-one. I'm just going to hand him the ball.
Okay. How long can we do that before Deebo says, hey, coach? Hey, coach.
Oh, that's going to happen. I mean, we can make that prediction right now. At some point in time, that's going to happen.
Coach, how many of these
I'm trying to figure out how they keep their identity of who they are with their physicality and what they want to do. And also playing with 3 wideouts. I'm struggling to figure that one out.
They were at their best when Deebo was in that role.
Yeah.
Then he got paid, and that part of his role, his job description, almost went away. They need to get back to that because when he had the ball in his hands as a tailback, it was really a problem because now you have 2 guys that are nearly identical in terms of the way that you can deploy them. If you put those 2 back in the backfield where they're subbing for one another, because also remember this, both of them had to deal with injury things. So maybe we split it in half and allow y'all to kind of co-headline that position at the market and do some of those other things. Now I'm really intrigued with how we're utilizing Debo because he gets more touches. More touches leads to more plays, but it also helps us set the tone as a ultra physical team on offense.
Yeah. Also, hey, Tyron Smith, 33 years old, don't really practice much anymore. Just show up on game day and play. Nick Bosa right out the chute, man. Here we go.
It's like that's what we're doing. Hey, we're not gonna practice, and then we're gonna take on the Tasmanian devil on the outside. Yeah, good luck with that.
I also don't. I mean, I'm gonna send Hassan Reddick over to that right side and let him do some work on the opposite side away from Trent Williams too, though. So
that's
that knife can cut both ways in that game.
Yeah, that help. Lot of help. Look out.
All right. Hey, this has been fun, man. We'll be back next week. Buck, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No, good podcast. Love to have conversations like this. It was a lot of
fun. Somebody did ask on Twitter about the fish in the pond. They wanted an update from the backyard last year. The little fishing in the pond. We had some koi fish that got eaten by some bass. We have not introduced any more koi fish. We have a very thriving smallmouth bass population in the pond in the back. We might thin that out a little bit this summer, but stay tuned on that. There'll be a fishing update. We did catch a couple with some chicken nuggets as feed. If you remember. Very hungry fish. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do.
Little did they know.
Yeah, little they know. They went out. But I'll tell you what, if I'm going to go out, Chick-fil-A nugget in my mouth as I call it a career, not a bad way to go out, Buck.
Yeah, not a bad way at all.
You know, those other guys are like, dude, that's a nugget. What are you doing? You really got hooked. You gave up your life for a nugget? Yeah, well,
didn't know.
Lightly breaded. It's just a little lightly breaded. All right, that's going to do it for us. Appreciate you guys hanging with us. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.